And navigating really complex topics, especially something, as personal as grief, it can feel incredibly isolating sometimes.
Hmm. So many different perspectives, so
Mhm.
much advice flying around.
Yeah, it's just easy to get lost, trying to figure out what actually fits your experience, what helps, what's even true for you.
Right.
And that's exactly why we do these deep dives. You give us the material, articles, notes, whatever you've gathered, and we work through it together.
Pulling out those core insights, connecting the dots, getting right to the heart of what your sources are saying.
Exactly. It's about getting you grounded in the information you brought, making it clear.
So today, we're diving into, well, a tough but really human topic:
Uh-huh.
art, creativity, and how they relate to grappling with loss.
And the sources you've shared for this one seem particularly rich. They're not clinical, are they? More personal, reflective?
Yeah, they feel very rooted in lived experience observation. Really powerful stuff.
Okay. So the mission today isn't just listing ideas. It's about understanding that nuanced relationship between creating and grieving as described right here in this material.
Let's see what it reveals. It jumps right in, actually.
How so?
It immediately tackles a really common cultural idea. The narrative that if you create something beautiful out of grief, a painting, a poem,
It sort of balances the scales, makes things even.
precisely, that creating something good serves as a kind of redemption or even a cure for the loss.
Ah, okay. And the sources push back on that.
They do, quite strongly. They argue that this idea, this presumption, is actually a real disservice
A disservice to who?
to both the creative process itself and, maybe more importantly, to the person who's actually grieving.
Why? It sounds sort of positive on the surface, finding meaning in pain.
Because, as these sources lay it out, it sets up a false equivalence. Creating something good, no matter how amazing it is, isn't a trade.
It doesn't replace the person or the life that was lost.
Exactly.
Really?
Pain isn't redeemed by making art. That's what this material insists. Creating doesn't erase loss.
So it doesn't solve anything, doesn't make it right.
No. There's no, cosmic balancing act where your beautiful creation makes up for the fact that you didn't get to keep living the life you had.
Okay. Wow, so if it's not a fix, not a redemption, why do it? Why do these sources suggest engaging with creativity at all when you're grieving? What's the point then?
Right, and that's where the perspective really shifts in this material. It moves from debunking that myth
Mm.
to exploring why we create,
Right.
fundamentally, especially when we're hurting.
And what does it say?
It suggests it's just part of being human. Our minds, our hearts, they kind of run on creative expression. It's almost innate,
It's not just like a hobby you pick up, it's deeper.
much deeper, according to these sources. Just like love needs expression, the argument here is that pain needs it too. The mind naturally seeks ways to articulate what's going on inside.
Especially when the world outside feels chaotic, maybe? When nothing makes sense?
Yes, we're storytelling creatures, aren't we? We turn to art, to stories, to try and find some meaning, some framework, especially when life just completely unravels.
We need those images, those narratives to sort of guide us in the new reality.
Exactly. And another crucial point these sources make is that creating helps you bear witness to your own reality.
Bear witness. How so?
It reflects your own pain back to you. In a world, in a culture that often doesn't want to hear about the raw, messy parts of grief.
Or tries to rush you through it.
Yeah. The page, the canvas, the clay is presented here as a silent, willing companion, a space where your truth, no matter how difficult, is always welcome.
So, okay, if you remove that pressure for art to fix things, it becomes something else entirely. The material calls it an ally,
An ally. Yeah, I like that phrasing. An ally inside the grief.
helping you withstand it.
Yes, exactly. A way to withstand the sheer force of it. And the sources suggest it can actually reduce suffering.
Not by making the pain go away, though.
No, not by erasing the pain, but maybe making it slightly more bearable or more understandable from the inside looking out.
And it mentioned deepening the connection with the person who died. That feels really significant.
It does. This material makes a really powerful point. Death changes a relationship. It doesn't necessarily end it.
Ah.
And creative practices are described as one way to continue that conversation, that bond, carrying it forward into this new, changed landscape.
And through expressing your own pain, you might connect outwards, too, with others.
Precisely. Pain often calls us into communication, the sources suggest, into communion even. They mention examples, don't they?
Yeah, Kolovitz, Picasso's Guernica, C.S. Lewis, Cheryl Strayed, others.
Right. All people whose profound loss found some form of expression. And that expression then resonates with us, with our own experiences. It creates a sense of shared humanity, maybe.
So you don't feel quite so alone in the intensity of it all.
Exactly. So the big takeaway isn't that creating fixes grief. It's more like a balm,
Mm.
a support system.
Within something that feels almost unbearable.
Yes. It helps you tell the story of what is, what's true for you right now. And doing that, the sources say, can make things just a tiny bit easier on the mind, on the heart.
Helping you stay connected to the person and maybe connect with, what do they call them, companions inside grief?
Whether that's people you know or artists from centuries ago whose work suddenly speaks to you, it can make things feel better, even if it can't make them right.
Okay, let's get into some specifics then. The sources seem to focus quite a bit on writing. What do they say about that?
Well, it starts with something really fundamental, almost physical.
Physical.
Yeah, they mention studies suggesting that even just 10 or 15 minutes of expressive writing can potentially lower cortisol,
Yeah.
the stress hormone.
Wow, so writing could actually help your body cope.
That's the implication here, that it helps manage that intense physical stress response, aiding your actual physical survival through the loss, tending your body while your heart breaks.
That's incredible. And psychologically.
It's highlighted as a way to let yourself express, well, everything, without filter.
Just getting it out.
Exactly. There's a personal account in the source material, someone saying they wrote simply because they had to. The words just leaked out, not even necessarily onto paper at first.
Wow. And that leakage, that expression, can become a way to feel connected to the person you lost.
It can. Continuing that conversation, like we said, and it also acts as a record.
A record.
Of moments, the rare calm ones, the many dark ones. It's something tangible you can look back on. The sources describe it as creating a kind of map.
A map of grief and love, a through line.
Yeah, exactly. Something to help you see where you've been, where you are now.
And writing the true reality is framed as vital for survival. Why the emphasis on truth?
Because as the sources point out, our culture often censors grief, right? We get subtle or not so subtle messages to keep it neat, keep it quiet. Writing offers a space free from that pressure. There's a great quote from a student in the material.
Oh, yeah?
About the freedom in letting all your words out, knowing you're heard on the page where everything is welcome.
That's powerful. There was another student quote, too, wasn't there, about writing, not fixing grief.
Yes, but giving you the most important tool to live with it. A way to express the agony and finding a tribe of others who aren't afraid of that agony.
That really sums it up, doesn't it? It's a
Yeah.
tool to get through, not to fix, and finding connection through that raw honesty.
Exactly. And the sources are really clear. The writing doesn't have to be good.
Not literary.
Not at all. Forget grammar, forget style. The point is telling your truth without censoring yourself, without apologizing for it.
Like that quote about shaping words with soft taps or carving deep troughs of love, learning a new vocabulary.
Yes, the act of putting your heart down, that's what matters.
But what if words just fail? The sources acknowledge that too, right? Language can be so small.
Absolutely. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Deep grief often feels illogical, primal. Trying to force it into neat sentences using that logical part of the brain can feel impossible, even infuriating, as one account describes.
So what then if words aren't working?
That's where the material suggests other approaches, moving beyond words or using them differently, like collage.
Collage, how does that fit in?
It's presented as an antidote to an overloaded, word-focused mind.
Because it's visual, wordless.
Exactly. You're using borrowed images, not struggling to invent your own. And the physical act, tearing, cutting, rearranging, gluing, is described as satisfying, destroying, and remaking.
A kind of nonverbal check-in.
Yeah, a way to center yourself, acknowledge your reality visually, and apparently with collage, impulsive, good, just letting it happen.
Interesting. And then there's found poetry. That uses words, but differently.
Right, like verbal collage. You take existing text, a book page, a magazine article, and just find words.
Find them.
Yeah, underline or circle words that jump out at you randomly. Close your eyes, point, let the available words dictate.
So you don't have to come up with them yourself.
Exactly. Takes the pressure off. You can rearrange them or just leave them in order. It's described as an experiment. See if it shifts things, gives you some breathing room, maybe just sucks less than staring at a blank page.
Okay. And visual art beyond collage. Sketching, graphic novels.
Yes, those are mentioned too.
Yeah.
Pointing out that sometimes a picture really is worth more than words, especially for capturing certain feelings. They reference specific graphic novels dealing with loss.
Like Anders Nilsson.
Right. and suggest just keeping a sketchbook, a place to put down things visually that are maybe too hard to write about.
So the overall message seems to be find your thing.
Pretty much. Whether it's writing, drawing, knitting, cooking, photography, the sources emphasize that whatever feels right to you, that's the thing to do.
The medium isn't the main point.
No, it's the act of creation itself. It's your practice. It doesn't need to look a certain way or achieve a certain result. It's an exploration, a companion.
A way to hold a mirror up to your own heart, you said?
Yeah, it gets to be whatever it needs to be for you in that moment.
And bringing this all together, the sources talk about these practices helping you see your life, your heart, for what it is now.
Which to someone outside your grief might sound kind of bleak, maybe?
Yeah, possibly.
But the material really emphasizes that seeing or hearing your own truth reflected back in your own creation can cause a really important internal shift.
Like that student quote, Kate Carson, describing grief initially as carrying a heavy, sharp, awkward object.
Exactly, something undeniable, unhideable.
Mm-hmm.
But through engaging creatively, she started to see it differently.
Not just a burden, but a sculpting project.
Yeah, working the clay of loss and the clay of yourself together, building something new out of the reality of what is.
That's such a powerful metaphor, your life and your grief as a work in progress.
And the sources really end on that note. There's no pressure to be finished, no need for perfection in your grief or your art. The goal is simply finding ways to tell your story.
Your ongoing story of love and loss.
That's it.
So we've really journeyed quite far today. From debunking that idea of art as a quick fix for grief.
Right, moving past redemption or making things even.
To understanding creative practice as this vital, quiet ally. A way to express, connect, bear witness, just navigate the reality of loss.
It's not a solution that makes grief disappear. It's a companion to have alongside you, within it.
Yeah.
Finding ways to be with the experience, not escape it.
And what comes through so strongly from this material is how personal it all is. It's your grief, your creative practice. It gets to be whatever it needs to be for you.
Reflecting your innermost heart, no rules, no shoulds.
Which leads to maybe a final thought to leave with, something building on this idea of bearing witness. If creative practice is a way to see your true reality, what might your reality, the what is for you right now, actually look like if you allowed it some kind of expression, image, sound, word, whatever feels right, without any pressure at all to make it good or right, just letting it be seen?